Good
Hi,
afternoon,
Annie
everyone.
Campbell.
My name is Annie Campbell Washington, and I'm Senior Assistant Dean of Academic Programs and Dean of Students with the Goldman School of Public Policy. It's my absolute pleasure to welcome you into this admissions information session for our Master of Public Affairs degree program. And today we've targeted folks who are working currently in local government, and we've invited an MPA alum and an MPA student who are currently working in local government to speak to you today. So it makes this session special. We also normally go through this slide deck in about an hour, but today we wanted to compress it into 30 minutes to make sure that you could get through the program with us during your lunch hour and still have a little bit of time to have lunch. So just so you know, we will be doing this session again in a longer format later in the month. And Cam will be sending out these slides to you as well as a recording of today. If you were here or if you signed up and weren't able to be here, we're going to send that out. So you'll have a chance to look at all the slides, even if we go through some of them pretty quickly today. Okay, so with that, let's move forward. And we will be happy to take questions at the end. So feel free to put your question in the chat while we're talking and we'll take it at the end, or you can use the raise your hand function at the end and we'll call on you directly. So first, as I mentioned, I'm Senior Assistant Dean of Academic Programs and Dean of Students. I'm also a very proud alum of the Goldman School of Public Policy. I got my MPP degree back in 2000 and then went on to a long career in local government in the city of Oakland. I absolutely love local government and the city of Oakland and just treasure my time that I had there. And so I'm happy to talk with anyone after this about my experience in local government and what I believe we offer as really deep value to folks who are working in local government. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Cam Parker.
Thank you, Annie. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We got some exciting things to share with you about our MPA program. I'm Cameron Parker. I'm the Executive Director of Student Affairs at the Goldman School, coming to you with many years of experience in higher education. For those of you who may be familiar with the local Bay Area higher education scene, I've spent time at Expression College in Emeryville, Holy Names University in Oakland, and now am extremely happy and proud to be with the Goldman School. So we're going to share some exciting things with you, and I'm happy to see you all taking some time out of your lunch break for us.
Thank you so much, Cam. And Darielle and Alicia, I'm going to call on you later to speak, but would you like to introduce yourselves right now? Darielle, you could go first.
Thanks, Annie. Darielle Dunstan, as Annie mentioned, an alum of the program, MPA 2018, and I currently am the Assistant City Manager for the City of Santa Rosa. And I'll pass it to Alicia.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alicia Knight. I'm a current student of the MPA program, graduating in May. Fingers crossed, everything is going well. But I'm also currently an employee for the City of Santa Clara. I currently work in the City Manager's office as a development project manager, working on special projects and economic development. So really, really nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much, Alicia. And then there are others on our MPA team at the Goldman School. Hector Cardenas is our faculty director for the MPA program. Simone Bryce is our associate director of the MPA program and someone that you'll interact with quite a bit as you are endeavoring to apply for the program. And then once you're a student, he's the academic advisor for all MPA students. And then Tom Hernandez is the associate director of career services for the MPA, and he is the career coach for all of the MPA students. We'll talk a little bit more about all that he does for the MPA students. And then just know that there's a larger student and career services team that is working behind the scenes throughout the year to support students on all of their endeavors, whether it's events, academics, what they'll be doing after the program, you name it, and working with alumni as well. Okay, so let's continue on. Our agenda for today is to talk a bit more about the Goldman School of Public Policy, what we do, what we offer. We're going to dive deep into the Master of Public Affairs degree program. That's what we'll be talking about today. I want to give Darielle and Alicia a chance to share more of their stories, highlighting them as an MPA alum and an MPA student. And then we'll have time to talk through the admissions process and next steps before we take your questions. I do like to highlight that the dean of our school is David Wilson. He came to us about 3 years ago, and it is a very exciting time to be at the Goldman School. He's brought a lot of innovation, a focus on new policy areas. He launched a democracy policy initiative as well as a tech policy initiative. We are, with his leadership, launching a new MPA program in Sacramento. There's a lot going on at the school, and so I really like to lift him up as a leader and someone that's really pushing to make sure that the Goldman School remains the top public policy school in the nation. And saying that, I'll talk a little bit more about our school. So GSPP was founded in 1969 as one of the very first public policy schools in the nation, and it's very often ranked #1 in public policy analysis and social policy, health policy, as well as public affairs. And of course, we're located at the #1 public university in the country as well. We're very proud of the fact that we are a public institution and dedicated to serving the public. As public servants, I know you can all appreciate that. And as you're a student at GSPP, you also have the opportunity to take classes across the campus. So not only are you taking classes within the Goldman School of Public Policy, you also have access to classes at the Haas Business School, the Information School, the Public Health School, Social Work, the School of Law. So it's an amazing opportunity and privilege to be a student and have access to all of these programs that are, many of them ranked #1 in the country. And we're preparing students for a diverse range of careers. We have folks coming in to the program in the public, excuse me, I'm stumbling, the public sector, the private sector, and the nonprofit sector. And then we have graduates going off into all of those sectors as well. So it's a very diverse student body, and I'll get into that in a little bit more in the coming slides. Our faculty are renowned across the country as well as internationally in all of these policy areas. Many of them are testifying and really making an impact on policy at the local, state, and federal level throughout the year. And we often bring practitioners into the classroom to teach. So you might, if you're local, you might recognize Angela Glover Blackwell, for example, who founded Policy Link. She's a local hero of ours, and she is a faculty member at the Goldman School of Public Policy. You also might recognize Robert Reich and Janet Napolitano, both who served at the federal level in previous administrations, and now they are faculty members at the Goldman School. So we love to have tenured faculty who are doing research as well as practitioners, all in the same school teaching our students. And as I mentioned, as a GSPP student, you have the ability to take classes at the other graduate schools across campus, which is an incredible opportunity. And many of our MPA students take advantage of that opportunity. Cam, would you like to talk a little bit more about the community?
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite things about the Goldman School. So yeah, so you see here the 4 key bullet points on this slide. So I'll just go through them quickly, but I'll kind of draw a line that connects all of them together. So first, the dynamic and diverse and rigorous educational environment. So we know it's Berkeley, right? You're going to be challenged academically. You're going to be challenged with your thought, how you view things, how you reason, and you're going to be given the skills to grow how you approach problems and address issues in the public sector and in other areas as well. But one of the things that makes that possible and makes that it's something that you can accomplish through your education here at the Goldman School is the close-knit community that exists here. So we are a part of an institution that has 30 to 40,000 people moving and shaking at any time. But GSPP is a close-knit community. You almost get the feeling of a small school within a larger structure. So you have access to all of the instructors that you saw that Annie showed you on that slide. I actually walk past most of their offices daily when I'm just doing, my normal duties at GSPP. So you have the resources and access to myself and people like Annie and things like that. Our alumni network, this is the first time I can do this in an info session, but I'm going to do it. You see, Dariel is here. He is an alum. Annie is here. She works at GSPP. These are folks that went to GSPP and they are so passionate about the education they received and the community that they are a part of, that they volunteer their time to support and help students. Alicia, who will soon be an alumni, she's here. And we all have plenty of things to do, but we're still committed to our community. And then commitment to inclusion. I know that word has become a little bit of a hot spot in the world today and right now, but at GSPP, inclusion is important to us. We want everyone to have a voice, to have a place within the school. And if it does not exist when you arrive, we are committed to helping you create and find that space. And we build it into the work we do as administrators, as the work that our professors do, and then the coursework that they teach in the classroom. So we are passionate about our community, and we hope that you will find your place in it. Thank you, Annie.
Thank you so much, Cam. So let's talk a bit more about the Master of Public Affairs degree program and what it is. I know that a lot of you are sitting in this webinar right now, working full-time at your jobs, and many of you are working in local government. This program has specifically been designed for a mid-career professional who may need to continue to work full-time during the program. So we've made it very flexible and focused on the skills and topics that you need to be able to directly apply them to your work while you're midstream in the program. So we're focused on policy tools and leadership skills to make systemic change. And we know that you're all working on these very long-standing public problems, and we've designed a program to help you address those. So we show the core courses here on this slide: policy analysis, innovation strategy and leadership, economics, research methods, inferential statistics. Now, you don't need to be an expert at math already to do this program. We've designed a program where we're teaching students how to be consumers of policy research and able to make decisions that they may need to make as leaders or managers in their organizations. But we don't expect for you to be able to produce that data analysis yourself necessarily. So don't be scared off by a class named research methods or inferential statistics. These classes have been designed for someone with a whole range of backgrounds and experiences before the program. And then your final core course is the capstone project course, where you are working for a client. You're taking on a real world project and also attending a class each week out of your capstone project class that is small and seminar size, so that you can work with your fellow students on the projects that they're working as well and advising them. If you are full-time employed or part-time employed during the program, you can absolutely choose your own employer as your client. So that can help you work on something that's maybe perhaps related to your work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. Now, I'm going to skip ahead, but these slides, as I mentioned, will be sent to you. I want to make sure that we have time to hear from Dariel and Alicia, but we can always come back. If there are questions, I can come back and provide a little bit more detail about the types of courses that you take, the schedule, what it looks like, because our program does begin in May, either in person or online. All students take 4 semesters. 2 semesters in the summer and a fall semester and a spring semester. And what makes it a 14-month option is if you circle back around and do the second summer session at the end. So you either have a choice of doing it in a row all in this summer that's coming up, or circling around and doing a bit of your summer next year. So that makes it a 14-month option versus 12-month. So with that, I'm going to skip ahead and pass the mic to Dariel and welcome you. Welcome, Dariel. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Annie. Always a pleasure. And I see a few familiar faces on Zoom, and so it's good to be in your company. As I mentioned earlier, I'm the Assistant City Manager for the City of Santa Rosa. I'm talking to a group of professionals that are very aware of what ACMs do, but When I talk to folks that have no clue about what local professionals do, I essentially am the chief operating officer for the city of Santa Rosa, reporting directly to the city manager, who's effectively our CEO. Santa Rosa has 1,300 FTEs, 185,000 people. I'm not offended if you don't know, because I didn't know before I got here, but Santa Rosa is the biggest city as you drive up 101 between San Francisco and Portland. So it's a full service city, and we've got a lot going on. I oversee our planning and economic development department, our housing community services department, our city clerk's office, our parks and rec department, and our IT department. And I work very closely with our city council, with our police and fire departments, and with our CFO. I'm going to back up a bit and give you an abridged version of how I got to Goldman and how Goldman has been an absolute game changer in my career. And so I'm an East Coast native. I grew up in Philly. I spent a lot of my young to mid-adult life in the DC metro area. I went to University of Virginia for undergrad. And I started my career in public service in the fire department. And so I was a firefighter and a medic in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is a suburb of DC. And when I promoted to the office of the fire marshal as an assistant fire marshal, I literally wasn't wearing a blue shirt anymore. I was wearing a white shirt, and I found myself in rooms with elected and appointed officials. And they were having some in-depth policy conversations that for me at that time was a new experience, right? When you're out in the field, you're used to running calls. And these were more strategy conversations. These were more policy conversations. And what really stood out to me is that having grown up in Philly, those who know, it's predominantly Black, and you would hear folks say that sometimes their public officials didn't always represent the community. And so in Prince George's County, I would find myself in some of these same spaces. Prince George's County is about 65% Black. And they were making policy decisions that impacted the community. And the idea was I was in the room as a public safety official, an expert on emergency management, crisis response, building and fire code. But when they would talk about economic development, when they would talk about community services, and again, from my own lived experience, I would ask just simple questions. Have you all reached out to community leaders? Have you reached out to any faith-based organizations? Have you done any town halls? And it was almost a foreign concept in that space. And what I realized really quickly was, no, it was never overt, but it was almost, hey, you're the fire guy, stay in your lane. And so I always knew that I would have been eligible to retire from the fire department when I was 47. And I always knew eventually I was going to have to make a career pivot. And so I started thinking about, well, what are the things that I'm interested in? What would I like to do after I leave the fire department? And really found that I had a deep interest and a deep passion for public policy. And so started researching public policy programs. Obviously, Goldman rose to the top, being the #1 public policy school in the nation. And I applied. And fortunately, I got in. And I won't lie, it is a rigorous program. It demands a lot of you, but the return on investment is invaluable. When I got to the school, you find yourself amongst people, not just in the public policy space, but just lifelong learners that are passionate about how to utilize education to promote a better society, and figuring out where you fit in so you can do your part. And that was extremely attractive. Annie and Cam both talked about that you have access to world-renowned faculty, that you have access to staff that are just as passionate about the school as you are as a student. And that's actually how Annie and I met. And so the dean at the school at the time had mentioned, he knew that I was a Pennsylvania native. Annie happens to also be a Pennsylvania native. He knew that I was in the fire service, and Annie was the chief of staff to the fire chief in Oakland earlier in her career. And at the time, Annie was serving as the vice mayor in Oakland. And so she came to speak to our cohort, was very impressed by all of the work that she was doing. We were able to connect, and sometimes, you know, the universe works in mysterious ways. But I had the great opportunity to leave the fire department to go work for Annie while Annie was the vice mayor in Oakland. And, you know, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Annie, but that experience alone really changed the trajectory of my career. Staffing Annie allowed me to put into practice these theories that we were learning in the classroom. And so I would staff Annie on the committees that she chaired, or that she was. In addition to my public safety background, I was really able to build out my policy chops in these other policy areas. I went from there to the administration side, started in the Human Services Department, and then ultimately made my way to the city administrator's office in the city of Oakland. And in those positions, what I will highlight is what I used most and what I continue to use most from my learnings at GSPP is we should be making decisions that is based on data, right? Sometimes you get caught up in emotional appeals, and you forget that either this grand idea has been tried before, and there is some learnings that we can take away from those past experiences, or we can extrapolate. If we're trying to do something new or innovative, we can still apply a data lens to decision making, right? And then ultimately, you want to use that data, but you want to make sure that the data speaks to the community specifically that you're seeking to serve. And so Goldman gave me a framework to be able to analyze data in a way, but then communicate back to the community how we're going to implement certain programs, services in a way that ultimately makes their lives better. And that is a direct tie to what you learn when you're at Goldman. It's all about how can I do my part to make this world a better place for everyone to live in. As Cam mentioned, it is an inclusive place, and you take those learnings once you get out into your career. I will say that having worked with Annie has helped me tremendously as an assistant city manager, because I work closely with our city council. And so since I had that experience staffing an elected official and working with other council offices, I am able to navigate really contentious topics, really contentious items in a way that bridges the theoretical and the practical divide, right? And so you're going to learn many theories while you're at Goldman, but you don't need me to tell you, because all of you all are local government professionals, that sometimes theory and practice don't always align, right? And so again, my experience at Goldman, my experience staffing Annie helped me so I can be a successful assistant city manager today. And I see that we're getting close to time, so I do want to leave some space for Alicia. But I'll drop my contact information in the chat. Feel free to reach out after this session if you want a more in-depth story about how Goldman has impacted my career in honestly ways that I can't quantify in words in 5 minutes, right? So I'll leave you with this. If you're thinking about it, pull the trigger. It will be one of the best decisions of your life. Alicia, take it away.
Thank you so much, Darielle. And thank you, Alicia.
Thank you so much, Darielle. Such a tough act to follow. Just incredible hearing your story. You are also one of the reasons why I chose to come to the Goldman School. So really, really honored to be able to be in this space with you. As I shared a little bit earlier, I'm Alicia Knight. I currently work in local government for the city of Santa Clara, supporting the city manager's office with really master plan developments and special projects that are based in economic development. Um, you know, I'm sure you all know Santa Clara is a full service city, and there's lots going on. We, in the next year, are actually going to be hosting both the World Cup and the Super Bowl. So as a city, that is something that we are gearing up and planning and working towards to get to that point. So as you can imagine, being in grad school at this time, there's quite a bit of stress currently because I am also still working full time. And so I do want to highlight that, you know, Annie and Cam both shared that the program is extremely flexible. And so I do want to highlight that, right? I'm currently working as a full-time employee with Santa Clara and completing my degree with Berkeley. So just want to share that. A little bit about me. I started my career in the private sector, and my focus was really on real estate development. I was asked a couple years ago to support the city of Santa Clara with a very large public-private partnership project, a master community plan. And my role was to really liaise between the developers and work closely and cross-departmentally. Um, um, representing the city and our policy decisions within the development space. At that point, I quickly realized that I was going to need to enhance my leadership skills, deepen my knowledge of the public sector, and really to be able to better address any challenges that were coming up. And so I immediately went into what program is going to be able to foster my learning and development and be flexible while I'm still working at the city. And so really what I found kind of doing my research, number one, I'm actually a native of the Bay Area. So I am actually from Oakland. And Berkeley has always been in my backyard. And so that was kind of my first choice as I started looking into programs that were going to be able to really advance my career goals. But again, Goldman has this flexible offering of curriculum that has continued to allow me to focus on my passions within the community, working at the city of Santa Clara and really advancing my goals. I don't know, I'm trying to think of what else.
That's
At the
great, Elise.
Goldman.
Yes,
Thanks.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. I guess if I could highlight anything as it pertains to just being a student currently going through this process, I would just say that the Goldman School is extremely diverse. And Annie kind of highlighted that you're able to learn cross-functionally across different programs and outside of GSPP and really kind of focus your degree on whatever focus areas are specific to your career development and enhancement. It's a really close-knit program. Our cohort is, it's a large cohort, but we are a family. And everyone has very diverse backgrounds, and we're able to learn from one another. While also, right, working with faculty and staff and really having that network, I think is what's really important what within the program and then also outside of the program. Um, yeah, trying to think what else to share.
That's great, Alicia. That's
Yeah.
perfect. And we'll just leave a little room because there might be folks in the room that have questions. And before
Yeah.
you and Ariel have to leave, it would be great in case there are questions for both of you. Thank you both so much for being here and for sharing your experiences in the program and outside of the program. It's really wonderful to have you both here. I'm going to continue on with the slide deck. But as I mentioned, we really wanted to keep this a short session that would fit into your lunch hour. So I'm going to show you what the rest of the slide deck looks like, but Cam will be emailing this out to all of the folks who registered for today's webinar. So please don't worry that we're not taking each slide as slowly as we normally would. You'll receive it in your email, and then we really encourage you to reach out to us and ask any questions you might have. The estimated cost of attendance for next year is $68,000, as you'll see here. You also can see the costs, the fees that are charged students, the health insurance cost, which is waivable. So if you have your own health insurance, which I imagine all of you do if you're working full-time in local government, that's waivable. And so students who already are covered with health insurance waive that cost. Same with housing and food and that sort of thing. It's just to give an idea for someone who's coming from the outside into the Bay Area. Our students finance their education in multiple ways. Obviously, many of our students are funding, if they're domestic students, they're funding their education with federal student loans. The way we've designed the program, it crosses over 2 academic years. So you can actually get loans in 2 different academic years to help you with the cost of the program. Some of our students are able to get some funds from their employer for educational purposes. So we do have a lot of students who are working with a little bit of help from their employer. If you have GI benefits, you can definitely use them for this degree. And then some of our students take on student assistant positions, whether it's a graduate student instructor or graduate student researcher, to help them fund the program. Okay, now the rest of this slide deck is about the admissions process. I am not going to dive in deeply because you might have some questions. I want to answer those before you all leave. What I want to say is what our associate director always says is, this is not a gotcha process. The application to the Master of Public Affairs degree program is one that is designed for mid-career professionals. You may have an experience from your undergraduate education that is perhaps not the most glowing record. That actually doesn't matter as much for the MPA program because we're looking at currently, where are you? How are you contributing in the world? And what do you want to do with this degree? And you'll describe that to us with your policy statement of purpose, your personal history statement, your resume. We'll be taking a look at all of those things holistically to see what type of student you will be, what you're interested in getting out of this program, your letters of recommendation that are professional letters of recommendation, folks that are working with you and know you really well and speaking about you. So this is not a gotcha process, as I mentioned. It's really you telling us about yourself and how you want to use the degree. So we really encourage you to reach out and ask us any questions if you are thinking of applying. Right now, we're in our rolling admissions, so the application is open until April 1st. So I really encourage you to, if you're interested, reach out to us. You can email us. I'm going to show you at MPA. MPA@berkeley.edu is our email address for the MPA program. Cam and Simone are constantly looking at that email, and you'll get a response within 48 business hours to any email. They're also making themselves available for one-on-one sessions. If you have questions about your particular situation and application, when you go to our website to the admissions section for MPA, you'll see a way to sign up for their one-on-one sessions. And as I mentioned, we're doing another webinar like this that's an hour long later in the month. So we encourage you to come back if you'd like to hear more. The way to get started on your application is to work on grabbing your transcripts from any degrees that you've received in the past, starting on those 2 statements, and then reaching out to your recommenders to get letters of recommendation. If you have questions on that, again, please reach out to mpa@berkeley.edu and we'll help you. Okay, with that, I am going to stop sharing just to see if there's anyone here who would like to ask a question while you've got us here in the room. Cam and I can stay on until 1, and we're happy to do so if there are questions. And you can feel free to put those in the chat, or you can use the raise your hand function and take yourself off of mute and ask us directly, whichever works for you. Thank you all so much for being here today. It's great to see all of you.
So while folks are working up the courage to ask a question, I did want to say a word on the price of admission, right? I understand that it may look like it may be some sticker shock at first. I promise you, though, that the return on investment, you're going to see that multiple times over, given the expertise that you're going to acquire at Goldman, in addition to the Berkeley network. Yes, if you can figure out how to get scholarships, if loans is the thing, if you can get your employer to pay for it, but don't let that be a barrier, right? And I mean this from my heart, because what you don't want to do is say, oh, I wish I would have figured out a way to make that happen. And then 15, 20 years from now, you have regrets. And I'm speaking from experience. When I first saw how much it would cost to attend Berkeley, I said, I've got to figure this out. I don't know if I can figure this out, but I did. And here I am, I'm 7 years removed from the program, and it feels like a drop in the bucket. And so if that can dissuade you from not pulling the trigger because you see that, right? Please don't let the price of admission be the only reason why you don't apply. And again, I'm happy to talk with folks online so we can figure out how that should not be a barrier. And as Annie stated, this application process is geared for mid-career professionals. And so maybe you had a lot of fun in undergrad and you're thinking, oh, there's no way I'm going to get admitted to Berkeley with a 2.7, a 2.8, right? No, apply, because what you want to highlight is your professional experience since you've been out of undergrad. And you want to make sure that you have professional references that are going to speak to the stellar job that you're currently doing in your job. And you need to be prepared to work hard when you get to Berkeley as well.
Thank you so much, Daryl. I really appreciate you jumping in and saying those things. I just got a great question from Emily that I'm going to answer. It's, are most students in the MPA program based in the Bay Area? Thank you so much for that question, Emily. I would have mentioned this if I had gone through the slides slower. But right now, for example, our cohort is 64 students. 30 to 35% of those students are international students, which is very typical for our program. We have students coming from all over the world into the MPA program. And then our domestic students are primarily from California, but certainly they're coming from all across the country. So it makes for a very diverse cohort coming from all different sectors, all different parts of life, all over the world, and which really makes for very rich conversations in the classroom because everyone's coming with this wealth of work experience, bringing those experiences into the classroom that everyone gets an opportunity to learn from. So it's really a fantastic experience to be in a classroom with a bunch of MPA students. Alicia, I don't know if you want to add to that.
No, you said it perfectly. Like I said earlier, it's an extremely diverse program. And again, just echoing Annie, everyone comes from all walks of life, and we're really learning in community, which is incredible. I learned the most actually from my cohort members, to be honest, just in how they approach problems, problem solving, diverse perspectives. It's incredible. So I echo Annie. No, and most people are not from the Bay Area.
The other thing I would have mentioned is most students are coming with 7 to 10 years of work experience on average. Some of them are coming with much, much more. Some of them are coming with a bit less. It really, the way we describe mid-career is really looking at the trajectory of that person's career. How are they contributing in the workplace right now? So don't let that hold you back either. If you don't have quite 7 years of work experience, please go ahead and apply, and we'll talk you through that application. And we're happy to do that before you apply as well. Oh, thank you, Matt. It's really wonderful to see you all. I hope we've answered your questions, but again, if we haven't, you've got our contact information. You know how to reach out to us. We really encourage you to do so. I'm so glad you spent your lunch hour with us. And Darielle and Alicia, thank you again for being here with us. It really added a lot to the presentation.
Thank you.
Have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.